Since the 12th of January 2024, the United States and the United Kingdom have bombed more than 60 targets in Yemen. These missile strikes have killed an estimated 6 people and risk escalating conflict in the Middle East into a full-scale war. But why are the US and UK doing this? What do they hope to achieve? And how does this all tie together with the conflict between Israel and Hamas? This is what's going on in Yemen. Since January 12th, the US and UK have been bombing missile sites operated by the Houthis in the country of Yemen. The Houthis are an Islamist political and military organization that controls a large part of the country. They have been around for years, but have come to international attention recently because of their decision to target merchant ships passing through the Red Sea. This is a crucial commercial and geopolitical region of the world, and the Houthis' tactics have sparked worries of the Israel-Hamas conflict spreading into a much wider war in the region. So what does this really have to do with the conflict between Israel and Hamas? As many already know, on the 7th of October 2023, Hamas led an attack against Israeli security forces and civilians, killing around 1,200 people, including women and children. Hamas also abducted about 247 Israelis and still holds roughly 120 people captive. The Hamas attack was violent and brutal, and it prompted a devastating retaliation from Israel. And since October 7th, Israel has dropped nearly 30,000 bombs on Gaza, the part of Palestine that the Hamas de facto administers. According to the health ministry in Gaza, 25,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict, 70% of them being women and children. Many people all around the world, but specifically in the nearby Arab nations, support the Palestinians. But the Houthis, they go even further and offer explicit support of the Hamas organization and their actions. In protest of the Israeli attacks and the lack of aid Israel is allowing into Gaza, Houthi leaders declare that they will attack any ships passing through the Red Sea that are destined for or owned by Israel. The Houthis have said that they will keep doing this until Israel agrees to a ceasefire with Hamas. And what really makes the Houthis noteworthy is their geography. The Houthis are the de facto government in western and northern part of Yemen, and they control the part of Yemen that's right on the Red Sea. And this is an incredibly important region for global commerce. In fact, about 12% of all global trade passes through the Red Sea. Oil and gas from Russia to China, manufactured goods from China to Europe, oil and gas from the Gulf states to Europe, and goods from Europe to a whole host of destinations in Asia are among the key resources that pass through the Suez Canal and Red Sea. Do you remember in 2021 when the Chinese ship, the Ever Given, got stuck in the Suez Canal for over 6 days? The incident interrupted an estimated $9.6 billion worth of global trade for each of the 6 days it was stuck. And this clearly illustrates the importance of the Suez Canal. So this canal is in Egypt, near the border with Gaza, and the route to the canal goes through the Red Sea. And to enter the Red Sea, ships must pass through the narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait between Djibouti and Yemen. And since the Houthis began harassing ships here, some companies have diverted their ships to go all the way around Africa to get to Europe. And this route, which passes the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa and goes all the way up the west coast of the continent, can add about 10 days to a journey to Europe, which in turn can cost the shipping company a lot of money for paying for extra fuel and wages. For some shipping companies, this long route is not only the safer option, but also the cheaper option, because insurance companies have significantly increased their premiums for ships passing through the Red Sea, if they're willing to insure them at all. But many major shipping companies have suspended traveling through the Red Sea simply because of the dangers the Houthis pose, and the accompanying rising insurance costs. And the companies that actually have suspended their operations in the Red Sea account for 95% of all cargo shipping through the Suez Canal. And major oil companies have also announced that they will not travel in the area. So who are the Houthis? The movement emerged in Yemen in the 1990s and is named after the Houthi tribe, which is where most of the leaders of the movement came from. The Houthis opposed the Yemeni government led by Ali Abdullah Saleh. Their leader is Abdul Malik al-Houthi, who is the brother of the original leader of the movement who the Yemeni military killed in 2004. The Houthis took part in the 2011 Yemeni Revolution, which was part of the larger Arab Spring movement. And to make a very long and complex story short, the Houthis are part of the civil war currently going on in Yemen, where primarily Saudi Arabia is backing the globally recognized government of Yemen, and where Iran supports the Houthis financially, diplomatically, and by supplying them with weapons. Many consider the Yemeni civil war to be a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, as the rivalry between the two nations affects many conflicts in the Middle East. But the civil war is just too complicated to explain properly in this video, and there are actually more than two sides involved. But how does this situation tie together with the current Israel-Hamas conflict? Well, many in the world have sympathy for the Palestinians, not only now but also before the conflict. However, governments in primarily the Arab world often don't do enough to support the Palestinians or to condemn Israel in their opinions of their citizens. This is because the governments and rulers of these countries are concerned with trade deals and diplomacy. The Houthis, though, as an Iran-backed de facto government with no diplomatic or economic ties to the West, don't have the same restrictions. Given that they're also explicitly anti-Israel, they've taken this opportunity to try to hurt Israel as much as they possibly can. So how does this currently working out for them? And why did the US and UK get involved and started shooting missiles? On the 19th of October, a US Navy destroyer in the region shot down cruise missiles and drones headed toward Israel. The weapons were launched from the Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen, and this was the first in a series of Houthi attempts to strike Israel. But it doesn't appear to have hit their targets. All the Houthi missiles were intercepted by US and Israeli defenses, and Israel even intercepted one of these missiles above Earth's atmosphere, making the first ever instance of space warfare. And reportedly, Saudi Arabia also intercepted one Houthi missile. Other Houthi missiles simply missed their targets, and two Houthi missiles landed in Egypt, one of which injured 6 Egyptians. Having no luck in hitting Israel itself, the Houthis changed their strategy to the already mentioned harassing of ships in the Red Sea. In November, they declared they attack any ship flying an Israeli flag, manned by an Israeli crew, or destined for Israel. However, international shipping is a complex web of connections, where the owner of a ship lives, where a ship is chartered, and where the crew come from can all be different countries. On the 19th of November, the Houthis abducted the Galaxy Leader, and no, this isn't a Star Wars character. It's the name of a merchant ship designed to transport vehicles. The Houthis took the empty ship and all 25 crew members on board to Yemen. And the Houthis have somewhat bizarrely turned the ship into a tourist attraction while keeping the 24 crew members hostage. In response to this Houthi activity, the United States formed Operation Prosperity Guardian. And this is a multinational coalition designed to protect vessels in the Red Sea and repel Houthi attacks. 11 nations have officially signed on, though there might be other nations supporting the effort. But only the US and UK have actively participated in hostilities though. The US also officially redesignated the Houthi movement as a terrorist organization. The Biden administration actually took the Houthis off this list in 2021 in the hopes of de-escalating the conflict in Yemen, which seemed to work briefly. So it seems that the Houthis' goal is to make Israel pay by interrupting their ships in the Red Sea. Although that might not be as effective as they think. You see, Israel actually has more than one port in the country. They got 2 major ports in the Mediterranean and only one connected to the Red Sea. This means that of all the countries hurt by these Houthi attacks, Israel is relatively safe. For example, Jordan, Sudan and Eritrea only have ports on the Red Sea, so the shutdown of traffic here significantly reduces economic abilities of these nations, all of which have their own conflicts and instability to worry about. But this doesn't necessarily mean that the Houthi strategy won't hurt Israel and its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's military aims in Gaza. 2024 is an election year in the United States and possibly in the United Kingdom too. And if the cost of goods continues to rise, the voting population is very likely to turn against their current leaders and vote them out of office. And that fact may lead to them putting pressure on Netanyahu and the Israeli government to halt their operations in Gaza or to at least slow down, allowing more aid into Gaza and to take more care to avoid civilian deaths. Publicly, the US and President Biden have stayed strong in their support of Israel, but behind the scenes, the Biden administration has reportedly grown increasingly irritated with Netanyahu and Israel. If the Houthi campaign continues, we will probably see a higher cost for gasoline, groceries and consumer products, which in turn could cause the United States, United Kingdom and other governments to strongly pressure the Israeli government to end their campaign in Gaza. So what will happen? This is a quickly changing situation. People are dying and tempers are high. It's very hard to predict what might happen, let alone when it might happen. But here are a few possible scenarios. The first one being that the US and UK military strikes succeed and subdue the Houthis. It's possible that the strikes in Yemen achieve their military aims and the Houthis stop attacking ships in the Red Sea. This seems unlikely to happen anytime soon, and the Houthis have prepared for this and have a series of bunkers and hidden launch sites that make stopping them with missiles very difficult. Furthermore, the Houthis' weaponry is largely made in Iran and made inexpensively, so they can afford to have a lot of their weapons destroyed. Another scenario is the US and other Western allies putting pressure on Netanyahu into stopping his attacks in Gaza. Although when confronted with criticism from foreign leaders, Netanyahu and his allies in Israeli coalition government have shown little concern. Netanyahu has poor popularity numbers within Israel itself, and he sees the war on Hamas as one of the few issues that he can win politically. When asked about the mild criticism he's receiving from the US, Netanyahu has held firm in his stated goal of eliminating Hamas. And the US might have to cut off the aid it gives to Israel for Netanyahu's government to even consider ending their attacks on Gaza. The third scenario is that the situation escalates. And this might also be the most worrisome possibility. That all this conflict draws in more nations. Maybe other Western nations send Navy ships to the area to attack Houthi sites. Maybe Iran urges their allied militias in Syria and Lebanon to attack Israel and open up for a second front in their war. Maybe the violence makes other conflicts in the region even worse, such as the civil wars in Yemen, Sudan and Ethiopia, and the worst case scenario here is actually really bad. And the fourth scenario is that the countries solve the issue diplomatically. It's important to remember that it's not only Western nations that will suffer from a prolonged closure of the Red Sea. This situation affects many countries, including China, India, Russia and Saudi Arabia. Countries that maintain diplomatic and economic ties with Iran might pressure Iran to pressure the Houthis to stop their attacks. It's also possible that Israel's allies convince Israel to make some concessions, such as allowing more aid and agreeing to a temporary ceasefire to calm the Houthis and Iran. What do you think will happen? Comment below or click on another video on your screen right now to learn more about the world.